Well, for more on this, let's bring in Ewan Watson. He's the head of public relations at the International Committee of the Red Cross, and he joins us this hour from Geneva. Thank you so much for joining us here on France 24. I want to remind our viewers, first of all, of the latest data coming from Kyiv. The Ukrainian Health Ministry is now speaking of at least 198 people killed in this war so far and over 1,100 civilians injured. As an organisation, this is clearly an emergency that's now unfolding.
Well, it absolutely is. I mean, Ukraine was already in conflict for the last 8 years. In the eastern Ukraine, we've seen conflict that's broken apart families, caused a tremendous mental health toll. So already the country was suffering. Now, of course, the conflict has escalated massively and across all of the country. It is absolutely an emergency. And from our perspective, the most important thing here is to protect civilian life and infrastructure. Now, obviously, you've mentioned there the casualties, and that's already each person that has been injured or dead. That is a tragedy in itself. But also, there's the infrastructure part, which is so important, because if a water plant is knocked out or an electricity plant is knocked out that is serving hospitals, homes, schools, then that completely disrupts normal life and forces people to make those impossible decisions and choices that we've been seeing about whether to stay where they are and shelter or whether to start fleeing for a safer haven.
You've, as an organisation, also been creating this hub in Hungary to collect and hand out aid. Just how is that process going?
So that is really an emerging situation. We've seen yesterday tens of thousands of people moving towards the border and crossing the border. We're looking now at least, if not more than 100,000 people who have crossed over. And there with our Red Cross and Red Crescent partners in those neighboring countries, the key thing for us is going to be to put together that response. So it's going to be able to make sure that those people arriving are able to fend for themselves. They've got some food, they've got warm clothes, it is winter. After all, they've got water and some semblance of shelter for them. So all that is something that is really in construction. This has been so fresh. I think when we look inside Ukraine as well, the complexity there for us is just how to get aid distributed right now. Because, for example, so many people in Ukraine are in shelters. They're in subway stations, sheltering. We wanted just today to get out and distribute food, some basic snacks and water. But it's been very difficult, if not impossible, because of ongoing fighting, insecurity. We just can't do it. So some of that essential movement to distribute humanitarian aid is right now not possible.
And Mr. Watson, is there a message that you want to give out or to transmit to the international community and to maybe the Russian government, the Ukrainian government about the situation on the ground and what more needs to change?
I think my two messages to the parties to this conflict are protect civilian life and infrastructure, avoid using explosive weapons in heavily populated areas. That is crucial because civilian life and infrastructure must be maintained, protected and respected. The other message, I think, is that humanitarian aid must be facilitated. So as this crisis continues to unfurl, we'll see more and more needs arising, food, water, but also mental health. We have a hotline in Ukraine. People are calling us, not just asking for food, but also asking for support for mental health, for connecting with their families who may have fled. So that type of work is essential to the well-being of the Ukrainian people, and it needs to be facilitated by all parties.
Okay, Ewan Watson from the International Committee of the Red Cross, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.